Can't get this thing. There we go. Good evening. Let me see if I can get this to work. Hold on. It was messing up a minute ago. All right. There we go. Can you guys hear me? Hey, Donnie Bradley, Robert Knox, and Robert Stokes. How are you? Hope you're having a wonderful evening. If you guys just missed it, I was live downtown at Red Buffalo Brewing Company. Don't mind the noise in the background. I'm just playing it. But yeah, go checked out Joey Waters, which was a really cool, just like last minute throwdown. Um, that was out of nowhere, and then come to find out, my son is wearing a Purple Heart Homes shirt from when he was volunteering to do the Purple Hearts Home. I can never say it right. Back when he was in school, and it comes to find out that he actually works with Purple Heart Homes with the veterans, which is awesome. And we're going to be going there on location to one of the sites where they build the tiny homes, and we're going to go live there. I thought that was pretty cool. So we got invited out, and I'm excited. So, yep, absolutely. And if anybody has any events that they would love to see me stream live, I would absolutely be happy to do that if I have Wi-Fi or a hotspot. So yeah. Hey, Wolfie, how are you? I'm sorry you got to miss that you missed it, but if you guys want to check out Joey Waters, it's joeywatersmusic.com. He just got back from Texas, so that was cool. It was very unexpected, very kind of last minute. I thought that was pretty badass. So did that, and so yeah. Hope you're having a good evening. I'm excited for next week. I don't know about y'all. I am all Thanksgiving up. Yeah, you like my little bells? My son even offered to volunteer to help work on the tiny homes and stuff. So that was kind of cool. Loving your dedication for streaming. Whatever you're doing is simply awesome. Oh, that is so cool. Thank you. I'm gonna put that up. I hope that more people do things out in the community and they stream it live, and I think that's a really cool thing. Hey, Lathan, how's my baby doing? You're the one that has a baby. My bad. I hope I'm not wrong in that. Somebody had a baby. Lathan, did you have a kid? I could have swore you did. I feel stupid now. Don't mind me. When am I never an idiot? Anyway, so yeah, fun, fun. All right, we are on a fuzzy book. Chapter 12, amazingly, of. Oh my god, this is gonna be a long one. Okay. So if you guys have been following along, if you haven't, go back and check my other previous 10 p.m. streams, and you can get caught up. But we are reading a romance novel that is time traveler based. I think it's 16th century to modern day. Uh, had a huge plot twist in it. So that was kind of cool. Lots of sex. Just saying. It's a romance novel. I don't know. You just whatever. Listen. This is actually the first book. First, if as soon, I'm halfway done. I'm halfway done. As soon as I get done with this book, it will have been the first full book that I have read in completion since sixth grade. So I'm excited. This is like new for me. And thanks to y'all, my viewers, who are listening in on my nonsense and how much hooked on phonics did not work for me. Okay. So, but yeah. So, anyways, I'm so ready for Thanksgiving, y'all. My son is turning 12 on Thanksgiving Day. 12. My youngest son is turning 12. Out of all six of the kids, I'm going to be that mom that carries around the little baby shoes as they're going to college, like crying in that scene in, what is it? I was about to say Terminator. That's not it. Transformers. I'm going to be that mom. Yep. Yep. So I am going to be that mom that's crying her eyes out going to college. Yeah. That's if they ever leave. I don't know. But they may not. I don't know. I don't want them to. I don't want them to leave. At the same time, I kind of do. Mommy wants to go on a cruise. Yeah. Singles cruise. Yeah. I'd be that person, be sitting in the freaking cabin the entire puking my brains out because I'm seasick. I've never been on a cruise. I've never been on a boat that's like goes out in the ocean. I've been on a boat in like the bay area of not even the bay. Like I think it was the Hudson River. Yeah. So or Potomac. I don't know, something like that. I don't know. We went on like this boat dinner cruise thing for graduation, for safe graduation. Yeah. So, leave it to the graduating class of 2000 to have a safe graduation party where everybody was invited to Washington, D.C. on a dinner boat cruise. Because that's what you want to do after you graduate. Spend more time with the people that you were just in high school with. So, anyway. Anyway. So, yeah. So, the name of the book is Kiss of the Highlander. It's by Karen Marie Moaning. And we're on chapter 12. Like I said, if you're just joining me now, go back to my previous streams if you want to get caught up. And like chapter 6, you might as well just skip it. There was like 7 pages. Anyway. Alright. So, I'm going to try to read it without my glasses because I have no idea where the hell I put them. This is going to be interesting. All right. So, chapter 12, the next morning. Why must you live all the way up there, Sylvan? You're like the bald eagle nesting on the mount, Nell said, nudging open the door to his tower chamber, 103 steps above the castle proper, with her hip. Had to settle on the highest limb, didn't you? Sylvan McKelters popped his head up out of the book with a bemused expression. A silvery white mane was sleek about his face, and Nell found him terribly handsome in a sage way. She'd never tell him that, though. I'm not bald. I have quite a lot of hair. He lowered his head again and resumed reading, running his fingers across the page. The man was completely in his own world most of the time, Nell mused. Many were the times she'd wondered how he'd managed to get sons on his wife. Had the woman slammed his tomb shut on his fingers and dragged him off by the ear? Now was a fine idea, she thought, watching him through eyes that did not, nor had ever, in the 12 years she'd been there, betrayed 1 ounce of her feelings for him. Drink? She plunked the mug down on the table next to his book, careful not to spill a drop on his precious tomb. Not another one of your vile concoctions, is it, Nell? Nay, she said, stony faced. 'Tis another one of my splendid brews, and ye need it. So drink. I'm not leaving until the mug is empty. Did you put any cocoa in it? You know we're nearly out. No, he said with a put upon sigh, flipping a page in his book. Go on with you. I'll drink it later. And you might as well know your son is up and about, she added, hands on her hips, foot tapping, waiting for him to drink. When he didn't reply, she forged on. What do you wish me to do with the last two appeared last eve? Sylvan closed his tomb, refusing to look at her lest he betray how very much he enjoyed looking at her. He appeased himself with the promise of safely stealing several surreptitious glances when she walked out the door. You're not going to leave, are you? Not until you drink. How is she? She's sleeping. Now told his profile. The man rarely looked at her that she noticed. She'd been speaking to his profile for years, but she didn't seem to have suffered lasting injury. Thank the saints, Nell thought, feeling fiercely protective towards the lass who arrived with no clothing and the blood of her maidenhead on her thighs. Neither she nor Sylvan had missed it when they tucked the weak, unconscious lass into bed. They glanced uneasily at each other, and Sylvan had fingered the fabric of his son's plaid with a perplexed expression. Hey, Paul. Has she said anything about what happened to her last eve? He asked, rubbing his thumbs idly over the symbols embossed on the leather binding of the book. Did I lose internet again? Hold on, let me go back. I think I lost internet there for a second. Sorry. Oh wow, that's a long way. Am I still live? Wow, that's almost 40-second delay. Hold on. All right, so it's just my other phone. Wolfie, am I still live? All right, whatever. I'm just gonna keep going. Has she said anything about what happened to her last eve? He asked, rubbing his thumb idly over the symbols embossed on the leather binding of the book. Nay, although she mumbles in her sleep. None not of it made any sense. Sylvan's eyebrows rose. Think you she was harmed in some way that affected her mind? Methinks, Nell said carefully. The fewer questions you ask for now, the better. 'Tis plain to see she needs a place to stay. What with having no possessions, no clothing, I ask ye grant her shelter as ye did me that eve, many years past. Let her story come out when she's ready. Well, if she's out like you, that means I'll never know, Sylvan said with a studied casualness. I have a little bit of a British instead of like Scottish. Oh, Lord. Nell caught her breath. In all these years, he had never once asked what happened to the night she was given sanctuary at the Castle Kelter. For him, even to make such an offhand reference to it was rarer than a purple pine marten. Privacy was ever honored at the McKelters. Sometimes a blessing, oftentimes a curse. The Kelter men were not to pry, and many were the times when they wished one of them had. When a dozen years ago Sylvan had found her lying on the road, beaten and had left for dead, she hadn't felt like talking about it. By the time she'd healed and been ready to confide, Sylvan, who held her hand and fought for her while she lay fevered, had retreated coolly from her bedside and never spoke of it again. What was the woman to do? Blurt out her woeful tale as if she were looking for sympathy? As so a polite and infinite distance had formed between housekeeper and lord, as should be. She minded herself. She cooked her head warily, warning herself not to read too much into his mild statements. When she said nothing, Sylvan sighed and instructed that she procure suitable clothing for the lass. I already dug out some of your wife's old gowns. Now would you please drink? Didn't be thinking I'd not noticed that you haven't had been feeling yourself as of late. My brew will help ye quit dumping it in the garderobe. He flushed. Sylvan, you hardly eat, you scarce sleep, and a body needs certain things. Will ye try it and see if it doesn't help? He raised one white brow, giving her a satire-like look. You pushy wench. Cantankerous old fox. A faint smile played about his lips. He raised the mug, held his nose, and tipped the contents back. She watched his throat work for several minutes before he grimaced and plunked it down. For a brief moment their eyes met. She turned around and swept toward the door. Dinna be forgetting about the lass, she reminded stiffly. You need to see her. Assure her she has a place here for however long need be. I shan't forget. Nell inclined her head and stepped out the doorway. Nellie! She froze, her back to him. The man hadn't called her Nellie in years. He cleared his throat. Have you done something different with yourself? When she didn't reply, he cleared his throat again. You look. Uh, that is, you look rather. He trailed off, as if regretting even beginning. Nell spun back around to face him, her brows drawn together, lips pursed. He opened and closed his mouth several times, his gaze drifting over her face. Might he have truly noticed the wee change she made? She thought he never noticed her. And if he did, would he think she was silly old woman for fussing with herself? Rather what? Or rather what? She demanded. I do believe uh, the word might be fetching. Softer somehow, he thought, the gaze skimming her up and down. Ye gods, but the woman was temptingly soft to begin with. Have you lost your mind, old man? She snapped, thoroughly discombobulated. And when Nell was thoroughly discombobulated, she wielded crankiness like a sword. I look the same as I do every day, she lied. Straightening her spine, she forced herself to glide regally out the door. But the moment she knew she was out of sight, she rushed down the stairs, skirts a flying, hair tumbling loose, hands to her throat. She patted at the wispy strands of hair she'd snipped shorter that morn, similar to the wee lass's, admiring the look. If such a minor change drew, by God, a compliment from Sylvan McKelter, she might just stitch herself a new gown with the softest lepis linen she'd been considering. Fetching, indeed. Oh, Nelly! What up, Buttercup? I think there's a second little love story right here. Oh, Nelly. Y'all trip me up sometimes, I swear. Gwen awakened slowly, surfacing from a montage of nightmares in which she had been running around nude, naturally in her heaviest weight. Never, after a week of successful dieting, chasing Driston and losing him through the doors that disappeared before she could reach them. She took a deep breath, sorting through her thoughts. She left the States because she despised her life. She embarked upon a trip to Scotland to lose her virginity, see if she had a heart, and shake up her world. Well, she definitely accomplished her goals. No simple cherry picker for me, she thought. I get a time traveling genius who comes with a world of problems and sends me back through time to fix them. Not that she minded. She decided the words soulmate and Driston McKelter were synonymous. She'd finally met a man who made her feel with an intensity she'd never imagined, was brilliant, yet wasn't cold in his brilliance. He knew how to tease and be warm and passionate. He found her beautiful and was phenomenal, erotic lover. Simply, she'd met the perfect man and lost him. All in 3 days. Sounds like my life. He'd awakened more emotions in her than that in that short time than she felt in her entire life. Slowly she opened her eyes. Although the room was dim, the muted golden light from a fire spilling about the chamber, she blinked at the profusion of purple surrounding her. then recalled Justin's fascination with the purple running suits and berets, his insistence on purple trousers or a t shirt, a request she refused. That sealed it. She was definitely in Justin's world now. A sumptuous violet velvet coverlet was tucked beneath her chin. Above her, a lavender canopy of sheer gauzy stuff draped the elegantly carved cherry bed. A lilac sheepskin. Oh, really? She thought. I know there are no lilac sheep. Was spread across her feet. Purple pillows with silver braided trim were strewn about the headboard. Small curio tables were draped in orchid and plum silks. Brilliant plum and black tapestries in complicated patterns adorned the two tall windows, and between them hung an enormous, ornate, gilt framed mirror. Two chairs were arranged before the windows, centered around a table that held silver goblets and plates. Purple, she mused, with sudden insight. Such an electrifying, energetic man would naturally choose to surround himself with a color that had the highest frequency in the spectrum. It was a hot color, vivid and erotic, like the man himself. She pressed her nose to the pillow, hoping to catch his scent on the linens. But if he'd sleep in this bed, it had been far too long ago, or the coverings had been changed. She turned her attention to the frame of the exquisitely carved bed in which she lay. The headboard had numerous drawers and cubbyholes. A sweeping footboard was etched with delicate Celtic knotwork. She had been seen a bed like this once before in a museum. Why is it 18 plus? Because there's sex scenes in it, and I cuss. Who chose to go to Scotland to lose their virginities? What does a logical decision tree even look like? Master Enzo. That is the reason why I have stated that it is 18 plus. Because there's extremely erotic scenes in this book. Because it's an adult romance novel. Love. That's my version. We're just gonna run with it. Alright, where are we at? In a museum. This one was as new as anyone might find in a modern day furniture gallery. Raking her bangs out of her face, she continued surveying the room. Knowing she was in the 16th century and seeing it were two completely different things. The walls were fashioned of a pale gray stone. The ceiling was high. There were none of those moldings or baseboards that always look so out of place in renovated castles frequented by tourists. Not one outlet, not one lamp, merely dozens of glass bowls filled with oil, topped by fat, blackened wicks. The floor was planked of honey blonde wood, polished to a high sheen, with rugs scattered about. A lovely chest sat near the foot of the bed, topped with a pile of folded blankets. More cushioned chairs were arranged before the fire. The fireplace was fashioned of smooth pink stone with a massive Hewn mantle above it. In it, a peat fire steamed, sheaths of heather stacked atop the dry bricks, scenting the room. All in all, it was a deliciously warm room, rich and luxurious. She glanced at her wrist to see what time it was, but apparently her watch had wafted off into some quantum foam that had devoured her clothing and backpack. She was momentarily distracted by the garment she was wearing, a long, sheer white chemise edged with lace, and looked positively old fashioned and frivolous. She shook her head, swung her legs over the edge of the bed, and felt painfully short when her toes dangled a foot above the floor. With an exasperated hop, she dropped down out of the high bed and hurried to the window. She pulled the tapestry aside to find the sun shining brightly beyond the pane windows. She fumbled with the latch a moment, then pushed it open and breathed deeply into the fragrant air. I'll be honest with you. If I had a home built, the second floor would have French doors out to a patio. Mm. I probably would be totally fine living in like one of those, what is it, plantation homes? Yeah, I would be more than happy living in an plantation home with like 1,000 acres. The high doors, yeah, the really tall ones that open up, like both of them open up, and they're like, I don't know, they're French doors, I guess. I don't know. Either way, she was in 16th century Scotland. Wow. Beneath her stretched a lovely terraced courtyard, enclosed by the four inner walls of the wing of the castle that she was in. Two women were beating rugs against the stones, chatting as they kept an eye on the gaggle of children kicking a lopsided sort of ball around. She peered at it, squinting. Ew, she thought, recalled that Bert had said he'd read that medieval children played with balls fashioned from bladders of animals and such. That is kind of gross. But it's no different than some of the stuff nowadays, really. Yeah. She shook herself abruptly. She needed to know what the date was. While she stood gaping out the window, peril could be drawing even nearer her Highland lover. She was about to tug the coverlet off the bed and don in a toga style when she noticed a gown. Lavender, of course, lying across the stuffed armchair near the fire, a side of Miscellany, Miscellany, Miss Miscellany. I'm sorry, I'm horrible with some words. Of other items. Sure, I'm just gonna run with that one. She hurried to the chair, where she fingered the items. I love how they say fingered. Touched. The word is touched. Missile Eggnigny? Yeah, pretty much. How are you tonight, Daniel? She fingered the items, trying to decide the order in which she was supposed to put them on. But there were no panties, she realized with dismay. She could hardly be expected to swish around, bare bottomed, beneath her gown. She glared at the clothing as if irritation alone might conjure a pair of panties from thin air. She glanced about the room with an entrepreneur's eye, but reluctantly concluded that even if she snatched up a table covering, she'd have to knot it about her like a diaper. She slipped off her nightgown and then slid the soft white undergarment over her head. A simple shift, it clung to her body and fell to mid ankle. Over it went the gown, then the sleeveless overtunic of darker purple, embroidered with silver threads. This sounds really pretty. Had a customer lady hit on me in a roundabout way. Hey! Hell yeah! Go get him. Go get him, tiger. That's awesome. Stunned that it didn't drag on the floor, she plucked up the hem and snorted it when she saw it had been neatly sheared off. Apparently, people had already noted how short she was. She tied the laces on the overtunic beneath her breasts. The slippers were a joke, sizes too big, but would have to do. She slipped the silk swath from a table and ripped the sheer fabric. As she was balling it up and stuffing it in the toes, her stomach growled mightily. She remembered that she hadn't eaten since yesterday afternoon, but she couldn't just stroll out into the corridor without a plan. Order of the day: a bathroom, coffee, then the earliest possible opportunity to find Tristan and tell him what happened. Tell him what danger he is in was probably what he'd been saying before he melted into the circle of stones. Show him had obviously meant her backpack. She sighed, wishing that she had it. But Driston was a brilliant man with a fine logical mind. Surely he would see the truth in her story. In retrospect, it infuriated her that Driston hadn't told her the whole truth. However, she grudgingly acknowledged chances were good that if he had told her, he would have, with infinite condescension, debated the implausibility of time travel for however long it had taken her to drive him to the nearest psychiatric ward. She would have never believed he knew how to move in the fourth dimension. Who and what this man was, and whom she'd given her virginity. Hey now, she wanted a daddy. Oh Lord, go get him. She wants you to come play with her kitty, father. May I have permission? Sure. Hey, I mean, go get him. For real. Listen, they come around once in a lifetime. Just grab it while you can. I don't know. I shouldn't say that because nowadays it's really not. Hold on. What? Just take the bag. Take the bag. Are you gonna like mildly inconvenience me with this robbery? If you know, you know. Hi. Yeah, please take your sodas and your backpack. Are you coming in here in the morning? Don't jack up the door. Bro, for real? I love you. Punk ass. My daughter. Bye. Have a good night. Love you. Hi. Am I like not getting the messages properly, or is there like a drop in internet or something? Like I'm slightly confused. I said give your kitty a scratch. No. Should have said give your kitty a rub or pet your kitty for me or something like that. Scratch. That sounds horrible. Oh, that's my daughter. That's Sissy. She's on the other streams if you guys check them out. No worries. I'm ready for bed. I still got an hour and a half. So, there was only one way to find out. Find him and talk to him. Yo, Tristan, you don't know me, but a future you will be enchanted. Wake up in the 21st century and send me back to save you to keep your clan from being destroyed. She frowned. It wasn't something she'd believe. If a man showed up in her time with such a story, but Tristan must have known that what he was talking about. It was clear that he'd wanted her to tell the past him the truth. There was nothing else he could have been trying to say. She was starved, both for food and a glimpse of Tristan, and it was urgent that she discover the date. Jamming the slippers on her feet, she hurried out into the corridor. Chapter 13. Sleeping past sunrise was not a thing Tristan did often, but troubled dreams had disrupted his slumber and he'd slept until long past dawn. Hey, JB! Hope you enjoyed the bedtime story. He pushed the vague memories away and concentrated instead of on the pleasant thoughts of his upcoming wedding. Sylvan longed to hear the castle filled with voices again. Nell would be delighted by wee ones scampering about, and Justin McKelter wanted to burn of his own. He would teach his sons to fish and calculate the motion of heavenly bodies. He would teach his daughters the same, he vowed. He wanted children, and by American he would get his bride to the altar this time, no matter that he knew naught of her. She was young, of childbearing age, and he would lavish her with respect and courtesy, double it for having him. And mayhap one day she might come to have the same feelings for him. Mayhap she was young enough that she might be trainable, like a young foal. There you go. Get you a trainable one. Oh my gosh. Wait. Ha ha ha. Super fast. Yeah, my internet's like acting stupid. So I have a question. Perhaps you guys shall light up. I maintained basic business decorum as she revealed more and more about herself. Should I continue to be a pleasant but accessible computer guy and let her conquer me? Or should I openly reveal mutual interest? Ooh, that's a rough one. Client personal relations is not very highly looked upon. It's not. I tend to try to keep business and personal separate as much as possible. Like as much as possible. Forever. Cause yeah, that could turn bad quick. So yeah. Just tell her that you hope she has a nice day. Because if it's job related, that's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother story. You don't mix. Even anybody will tell you you don't mix business and personal. That's like family and money. You don't mix those two. Even my grandfather used to tell me that. Love is love, but money is business. And keep it outside of a certain range. Personal note, uh, personal lesson. Um, don't date within your area. Trust me. Just give yourself like a nice little happy space circle of a radius. You do computer service house calls? Oh, that's rough. Well, I mean, I guess she liked you. Did you go to her house? Is that why? She gotta look at you. That's what it was. I want me some of that. I want her to come. I want him to come play with my kitty. She's a lonely cat woman. Oh. I hope to God I don't ever become a lonely cat woman, but I probably would be totally fine with it, to be honest with you. Not yet, but she was like, "Oh, you're attractive." Nice, nice. Hey, kudos to Daniel. That's awesome. I had the weirdest conversation today. I'm not gonna like really talk about it a whole lot, but I had someone who like ghosted me a while ago, like come back and start talking to me. Not sure how to respond to that. I did ask how your day was going. Yeah, absolutely. No, you're fine. You're fine. I always want you guys to feel comfortable talking here. It's fine. Oh, Joey just said thank you for coming out. Yay! I like adding people on Facebook. They answer pretty quickly. So the only thing that I don't like is you know how like on the social media you have the links and stuff. I don't want to put my personal Facebook on that one because got my kids on it. And I kind of want to split my IG, like personal IG, business IG. Oh, I'm being ghosted right now too, and don't know what I will do if they return. Be a human being. Be cordial. Leave it at that. That's my advice. Yeah, we don't go backwards here. Mm-mm. We don't go backwards. All right. So hopefully you get a chance to pet the kitty. So I'm sorry. I know I'm so contradictory. I'm rooting for you, man. Like I really am. I'm rooting for you. Cause shit like that don't happen every day. And I tell you what, when you do get a chance to get it, it's like it's exciting, but it's like scary at the same time. Customer lady complaining my Facebook didn't have personal stuff. I said I interact with too many people to have personal stuff on here. Keep them separate if you can. Yeah, I think that's very good advice. If you're gonna be social and then like you have your circle, like I was talking the other day, I don't know if it was on this stream or not, but like I have like an onion circles of like people that I allow like in certain ranges of myself and knowledge of myself. And like yes, I am very social, but there's a lot of things that like I don't hang out with everybody. Like I hang out in live groups of people, like not personal. You know what I mean? Like people for the most part, except for the fact that I fuck up and keep saying their names. For the most part, a lot of people don't know my kids' names, and there's a reason for that. And they've even changed their names. So, because you love kitties, Monster Jam. Hey, be home at 7. Okay, are you gonna come? Wait, where? Oh, on Saturday. Fuck. Okay, so what I'll do, I'll switch the 5 p.m. live stream to 7. Okay. We'll go 7 to 9 instead of 5 to 7. I'll put that up on the schedule. 7 p.m. Is that Eastern Standard Time? If you see this stuff shaking in the background, it's because it's fucking windy as shit here. We're supposed to have a lunar eclipse tonight at 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Eastern Standard. I'm on Eastern Standard Time. Eastern. So 2 a.m. North Carolina. Not Easter. Eastern. Blood moon. Awesome. Hey, Charles. We're talking about the oh so funky best in 580 years. Maybe I'll find me a Tristan. The witches be lit. Yeah, I told my daughter, I was like, you might as well go ahead and get your intentions set because the moon water is gonna be kicking this night. Oh yeah, I forgot to show you guys. I don't know if you guys seen it from earlier. Crap. She gave me a tattoo. I love it when she draws on me. It's so creative. So she put my moon phases. I thought that was so cool. She put the moon phases on my arm. I thought it was awesome. 9:47 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I'll have to wait for your thing. Wait, it's 10:48 right now. Here. What time do you want me to do this Saturday on Eastern Standard Time? Because so you're an hour behind me. Okay. So instead of 7, it would be 6. No. You're an hour behind me. So your 7 would be my 8. All right. So we'll do a 1-hour stream at 8 p.m. just for Monster Jam. Yep. That's proper. So 8 p.m. my time, Saturday. Let me write this shit down because I know I'm going to fucking forget it. Saturday. Which that kind of works out really good because then it gives me more time to get ready. So if you don't know, Monster Jam's birthday is Saturday. I know I've been talking about it a lot, but I'm really excited about it. So the entire stream Saturday is for his birthday. I'm going to go ahead and give you guys a heads up. Thanksgiving Day is my son's 12th birthday. So we're doing this huge all-day stream Thanksgiving Day. And so we're having his birthday party and we're having Thanksgiving and I am enjoying I'm inviting you guys to join me at Ma's big table. Yep. I don't know if you guys caught any of my streams earlier in this month, but I got really emotional. I want a forever home that is big enough where it has enough rooms for all of my kids to have a forever room and a table big enough for everyone to sit at and to invite everybody to eat with me. And that's my thing. Like that's what I want. I'm your fave. Aww. Super big hugs. Super big mama bear hugs. Thank you, Monster Jam. I felt so bad yesterday because I didn't get to see you stream. My timing, like my scheduling and your scheduling are so close together. It's like I only get 15 minutes. Like I just get to like watch it for like 15 minutes and then I have to go live. It's like fuck. That's a wonderful wish. And not even just for my kids. Like I would love to open up, like purchase like a huge hotel with like a ton of rooms and like make like a huge area in the center where everybody comes to eat. Like you don't have separate eating. You all come and sit at my table and you eat the food that I'm making. And y'all have a place to sleep, you have a place to take a hot shower. Even if it's just for one night, you come to Mama's house, Big Mama's house. Big Mama Bear's house. I don't know, whatever you want to call me. I don't care. I don't know. That was always like when I was really young, and I know I talked about this already, but now that Thanksgiving is coming, it's really making me think about it. And I've been working with like, the inmate Christmas cards, and now I'm going to be working with Purple Heart Homes and like doing tiny homes for veterans and stuff like that. Anyways, so actually, believe it or not, Joey Waters works with the I forget what they're called. Halfway House. He works with the halfway houses and doing projects and stuff with them, and like volunteering and like fundraising and stuff like that. And I thought that was so cool. Like so cool. My parents actually worked with Job Corps. And one year for the holidays, my parents invited the kids that couldn't go home or didn't have a home to go home to the house to eat together at one big table. Like we had this long table. I mean, I still have it. It's in storage right now, but it's at my house. We had this long table, and everybody, they have benches, and we all ate together. And at first, I was scared because I was like, all right, these are people I've never seen before in my life. They're all covered in tattoos and piercings and like really like built up and stuff and like scary looking. To a kid, never seen them. My dad used to be in a biker club, and so anyways, so they invited him. We all had dinner together. It was a great time, and that memory alone like stuck with me. So now, like that's something that I want to do. Like even my kids' friends are all just like, "Oh, your mom's so cool," and I'm like, "Just don't fuck up my house." I remember go to a Society for Creative Anachrisms event, and they did a huge table thing. It was great. Oh, that's cool. That's really cool. So yeah, I'm trying to bring Thanksgiving back. I don't know if it's actually gonna work or not, but we'll try. I would love to do like a live stream where like everybody is all at the table. People who dress up medieval, like Renfest, Master Jim in the house. I would like chilling out tonight. Woo. Tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. I'm canceling it. My daughter's got an 8 a.m. meeting, and I'm not happy about it. 8 a.m. therapy session in another town. I'm not looking forward to getting up early. Like people who live Renaissance Fair instead of just working at it. Sweet. That's pretty badass. Did they have the big turkey legs? It's the first thing I think of. Either that or pickles. Because there was a guy that used to walk around the Renfest and say, um, give me a pickle or give me a nickel and I'll tickle your pickle or something like that. It was like funny as shit. And he would give out these huge pickles. We saw a jar of them at Walmart the other day. I was like, I wonder if they taste different than the small jars. There were these huge pickles, like they were that big. Imagine if you took like a regular sized cucumber and made it into a pickle. I had, you know what? I still have it. I haven't even finished dinner yet. There was pickles in my dinner, and it threw me for a loop because it was rice. I was like, "What the fuck is this?" It had pickle cut up, and like had tomatoes and like shredded lettuce stuff in it, but it had rice at the bottom, and it was like some kind of like ranchy white sauce on it. I don't know. It was weird as fuck, but it tasted so fucking good. Turkey legs full on feast. I love your idea of doing that for people and family. Yeah. There's so many people that eat alone on Thanksgiving. That's another reason why I'm streaming. on Thanksgiving because there's so many people that eat alone. Either A, they can't see their family because of traveling, or B, because their family doesn't come to fucking see them ever, or they don't have family, or it's just them. And if it's just you, you are more than welcome to come join me virtually to my table, and you can watch me cook, and you can join us and chat and bullshit and watch me drink because I will. And yeah, you're more than welcome to join me Thanksgiving Day for an all day event, all day, because I will be cooking all fucking day. I'm gonna be so stressed out. Don't get mad at me if I pull out the whiskey, okay? Like my kids already know. Don't mess with mom when she's in the kitchen. Like just fucking leave her alone unless she asks for something. But then Sissy gets all right up next to me. She's just like, I want to do this and this and this and this. I'm like, no, I specifically bought groceries for the plates that I'm gonna be making. Don't put anything. I just have enough ingredients just to make what I'm making. So yeah. I love her to death. I love her involving herself in with, cooking and stuff like that with me. It makes me feel special when she does. But sometimes two cooks in the kitchen can cause an issue. And then my dominant side comes out, and I'm just like, get the fuck out of here. So yeah. If you're wondering what that squeaking noise is, it's my bra. It's digging into my armpit and it's driving me crazy. These things are like $70 or $80 a piece. I buy two around tax time, and they last me the year. And for some reason, this one's like an old house floorboard. Like I don't know, you hear it? My rule is first person to yell, "Get out of my kitchen" wins. I'm like, no, like drink. I made it. You fucking drink it, whether you like it or not. Just kidding. Nah, I'm really chill person. I may get pissed, bitch about it, but I'm overall a pretty chill person. Except for with my kids. I don't know if you noticed or not, but I'm like with my kids. They don't fucking listen to shit. They think it's funny because they know I'm not gonna beat their ass or anything. Yeah, one day I may, but not right now. I don't even know the last time that they ever got punished for anything. To be honest with you, I'm a single mom. I have four kids. I am not gonna be sitting here fighting over some bullshit forever. No, I don't. I learned a long time ago not to put myself through any more stress than I absolutely have to. There's some shit you just don't fight about anymore. But anyway, I don't even remember the last thing I read. Something about getting trained. There we go. Trainable like a young foal. If she couldn't read and write, she might like to learn. Or she could be weak of sight and not notice the eccentricities of the occupants of Castle Kelter. And mayhaps his wolfhounds would take to sailing long boats across the loch, sporting Viking attire, waving flags of the surrender. Ha! Anaya was his last chance, and he knew it, because they were Highlanders who kept much to themselves. Because of the centuries of rumors, because of the string of broken betrothals, fathers of well bred young ladies were loath to pledge their daughters to him. They sought for their daughters safe, respectable men whom rumors didn't cling as tenacious as birds on a wooing. Yet the Elliot, laird of ancient clan of noble lineage, had decided to overlook it all, for two manors and a fair amount of coin, and a match had been promised. Now Justin merely had to hide his unusual abilities long enough to make Anaya Elliot care for him, or at least long enough to get a few burn. He knew better than to hope for love. Time had taught him well with that. Love, he mused. What would it be like to have a woman look at him with admiration, appreciate who he was? Oh my goodness. Appreciate who he was. Each time he'd begun to believe a woman might care about him, seen or heard something that frightened her witless and abandoned him, crying, pagan, sorcerer. Bah, he was perfectly respectable Christian. He just happened to be a druid too. But he suffered no conflict of faith. God was in everything. As he'd granted his beauty to mighty oaks and crystal locks, he'd also brushed the stones with the stars with it, and the stars with it. Absorbin, Absorbed in the simple perfection of an equation, Tristan's faith deepened, not weakened. Recently, he'd begun regularly attending Mass again, intrigued with the intelligent young priest who was over the services at the castle. Endowed with a gentle manner, a quick wit, an addled mother for whom he couldn't be blamed, and with an open mindedness rare in men of the Kirk, Nevin Alexander didn't condemn the McKelters for being different. He saw past the rumors to the honorable men within, mayhap in part because his own mother practiced a few pagan rites. Justin was pleased the young priest would be performing the wedding ceremony. Work restoring the lovely chapel in the castle had been accelerated to have all in readiness. In anticipation of his future wife's arrival at the Castle Kelter, he had taken precautions. Not only had he warned Sylvan and Dagus about unusual displays of talents and mind boggling conversations, but he had the heretical tombs removed from the library and toted up for secure storage in Sylvan's tower chamber. God willing, she'd be so busy with her aunts and maids who were to accompany her that she wouldn't take notice of anything odd about anything, any of them. He would not make the same mistake with Anaya Elliot as he had made with his first three betrothed. Surely his family could present their best boots forward for only a fortnight. He would not fail this time, he vowed optimistically. Unfortunately, no one else in the castle seemed optimistic this morning. Upon awakening, hungry and unable to find a single kitchen lass about, he wandered down the corridor to the kitchens, calling for Nell, until she finally poked her head out of the buttery to see what he wanted. What did any man want in the morning, he teased, besides an energetic tussle between the sheets? Food. I was thinking between Justin and the priest for a second. I was like, please don't say that's in here. That would ruin it for me. For me, that would ruin it. I'd be like, you know what, just throw it out. No, I don't like sharing. I don't share. I'm very territorial. Not Julius. Territorial. There's a difference. Sometimes jealous. Anyway, so gotta be honest with yourself, you know? So, anyway. Alright, she hadn't smiled and teased back, casting him aside sideways and oddly scathing glances. Nell had compiled, following him back to the great hall and slapping down a crusty, week old bread, flat ale, and pork pie that had begun to suspect contained parts of a pig that he'd prefer not to think about. Sounds like a hot dog to me. Where were his treasured kippers and tatties, fried crispy golden? Since when had he, Nell's favorite, rated such meager fare in the morning? On occasion, Dagus had been treated in such poor fashion. Usually, when he'd done something Nell hadn't appreciated, involving a lass. But not Trustin. So now he sat alone, wishing someone, anyone, even young Tristan, God, do they all seem the same? The bright lad they were training in basic druidry might saunter in with a hello or a smile. He was not a man given to dark moods, yet this morning his entire world felt off balance, and he couldn't shake a niggling sense of foreboding that it was about to get worse. So, Sif- Sylvan said, popping his head into the great hall, skewering him with the intense gaze. Where were you last night? The rest of him followed at a more leisurely pace. Tristan smiled faintly. If he lived to be 100, he'd never get used to his father's gait, head first, and the rest of him trailing behind, as if he tolerated his body only because it was necessary to tote his head about from place. He took a swill of flat ale and said dryly, "Good morning to you, Daw." Was everyone out of sorts this morning? Sylvan hadn't even bothered with a greeting, just a question that had sounded much like an accusation, and had made him feel like a lad again, caught slipping back in from a nocturnal dalliance with a serving wench. The elderly Celter paused inside the doorway, leaned back against the stone column, and folded his arms across his chest. Too busy pondering the mysteries of the universe and scribbling in his journals to indulge in training or swordplay. Sylvan was nearly as tall as Dristan, but much narrower in frame. Dristan forced himself to swallow a mouthful of what he was becoming convinced was a pigtail pie. Crunch, crunch. By American, that what had Nell put in this thing? He wondered, trying not to look at the filling overmuch. Did she bake horrid things in advance to ply upon whomever upset her in some fashion? I said, where were you? Sylvan repeated. Tristan frowned. I. Oh, Sylvan was definitely out of sorts. Sleeping. And you? Skewering misuse, yes, on these territories and get violated. Oh, Lord. He plucked an unidentifiable from his plate and offered it to one of the hounds beneath the table. Curling its lip, the animal growled and backed away. Justin frowned dubiously at the pie before glancing back at his father. Sylvan looked his age this morning, and that was that depressed and irritated Justin. Sorry. Depressing him because Sylvan was his age, all of three score and two. Irritated him because recently his father had taken to wearing his hair loose around his shoulders, which, in Tristan's opinion, made him look even older, and he didn't like to be reminded of his father's mortality. He wanted his children to have their grandfather around for a very long time. Sylvan's hair was no longer the thick black of his prime, but shoulder length, snowy white, and possessed a personality of its own. Coupled with the flowing blue robe he favored, he projected an unkempt, mad philosopher look. The first image that I just got in my mind was from the Sorcerer's Stone. Am I wrong? You know what I'm talking about. The Sorcerer in the Stone, where he's pulling the sword, and the dude's wearing like a blue robe and hat, and he's like got white hair and stuff. I don't know, maybe I'm thinking of something else. I don't know. Anyway, I'm tired. Tugging the leather thong from his hair, he tossed it at his father and was relieved to see that his dog was still spry enough to catch it with a hand above his head. What? Tristan asked peevishly, glancing at it. What would I be wanting with this? Tie it back. Your hair's making me mad. Sylvan arched a white brow. I like it this way. Your information. The priest's mother quite likes it in my hair. She told me so just last week. Da. Stay away from Nevin's mother, Justin said, making no attempt to conceal his distaste. I vow that woman tries to read my fortune every time I see her. Ever creeping about, spouting gloom and doom. She's daft, Basetta is. Even Nevin thinks so. He shook his head and popped a crust of bread in his mouth, then washed it down with a swig of ale. The pork pie had defeated him. He shoved the platter away, refusing to even look at it. Speaking of women, son, what have you tell me about the wee one that appeared here last eve? Tristan lowered his mug to the table with a thump. He was in no mood for one of his father's cryptic conversations. He slid the pork pie down the table towards his father. Care for some pie, Dad? He offered. Sylvan probably wouldn't even notice anything wrong with it. To him, food was food, necessary to keep the body toting and the head around. And I do not know what lass she talking about. The one who collapsed at our doors yesterday, wearing naught but her skin and your plaid, Sylvan said, ignoring the pie. The chieftain's plaid. The only one that's woven with silver threads. Tristan stopped brooding over his mealy breakfast until his attention was fully engaged. Collapsed, indeed. Indeed. An English lass. I've seen no English lass this morning, nor last eve. Mayhap the lass, mayhap the lass Sylvan was going on about was the reason he'd gotten the offensive pork pie. Now had a soft heart, but he'd been one of his prized Damascus daggers. He'd bet one of his prized Damascus daggers that if an abused lass had appeared on the doorstep, she was one dining on the golden kippers and tatties and soft poached eggs, mayhaps even clooty dumplings, oat cakes, and orange marmalade. Oh my god, I love marmalade. Mad imagery of pulling a sword. Yeah. On one more than one occasion, women from other clans had sought refuge at the castle, seeking employment or a chance to start a life anew with people who didn't know them. Nell herself had found such refuge here. What does the lass say happened to her? Justin asked. She has no condition to answer questions when she appeared, and now says she hasn't yet awakened. Justin eyed his father for a moment, his eyes narrowing. Are you insinuating that I'm responsible for her presence? When Sylvan made no move to deny it, Justin snorted. Ugh, da. She may have found one of my old plaids anywhere. It's not like threadbare and had been tossed in the stable to be cut up to birthing rags for the sheep. Sylvan sighed. I helped carry her to the chamber, son. She had the blood of her maidenhead on her thighs, and she was naked, and she had your plaid wrapped around her. A crisp new one, not an old one. Can you see how I might be perplexed? Now that's why no served me weak old fare. Justin pushed back his chair and rose, bristling with an indignation. Surely you do not believe I had aught to do with it, do you? Sylvan rubbed his jaw wearily. I'm merely trying to understand, son. She said your name before she swooned, and last week Besessa said, do not even think of telling me of some twig reading fortune teller. I almost just dropped it. That there is a darkness around you that worries her. Such a fortuitous choice of words, a darkness, which covenantly would be anything that comes to pass, a bad stomach from a pork pie, a wee cut in a sword fight. Do you see how vague? Don't you? Don't you? Don't you see how vague it is? You should be ashamed of yourself. and a man learning, the senior Kelter for no less. They glared at each other. Stubborn, ungrateful, and bad tempered, Silver snapped. Conniving, interfering, and bristly haired, Tristan shot back. Can't even say it anymore. Disrespectful and impotent, Sylvan thrust neatly. I am not. I am perfectly virile. Well, you certainly couldn't prove that by your seed, which, if it's been scattered, isn't taking root. I take precautionary measures, Justin thundered. Well, stop. You've a score and 10, and I've doubled that. Think you I'll be living forever. At this point, I become a bastard, and you can rest assured that should the last turn out to be pregnant, I'll be calling the Baron McKelter. They scowled at each other. Then Sylvan suddenly flushed, his gaze fixed on a distant point beyond Justin's shoulders. Justin froze as he felt a new presence in the room. The hair on the back of his neck stood up. He spun around slowly. The time seemed to stop when he saw her. His breath slammed to a halt in his chest, and he positively sizzled beneath the heat of her stare. Christ, Justin thought, staring into eyes that were stormy and lovely as they were fierce Scottish sea. She's wee and vulnerable looking and utterly beautiful. No wonder she's got da and Nell in such a fankle. She was a walking siren song, humming with mating heat. One hand was on the elegant marble banister of the stair, the other hand pressed to her abdomen, as if pondering the possibility that she might be pregnant. Would that he had taken her maidenhead, but he hadn't. He'd not taken any woman's maidenhead, and furthermore he would never have left her wandering about outside afterward. Nay, he thought, staring at her, he would have kept this woman tucked securely in his bed, in his arms, warm and slippery from his loving, and more loving, and did some witchy things to his blood. Ooh. Silver blonde hair fell in a straight sheen past her shoulders and halfway down her back. She had a strange fringed length of hair over her forehead that she puffed from her eyes in a soft exhalation of breath, which made her lower look even poutier. Small of stature, but with curves that would make a grown man weak at the knees. And indeed, his had turned to water. She was wearing a gown of his favorite color, and that did lovely things to her breasts. It was sheer enough to reveal her nipples, cut low enough to frame her curves in timeless temptation. Her cheekbones were high, her nose straight, her eyebrows winged upward at the outer edges, and her eyes. Christ, the way she was staring at him was enough to make his skin steam. She was staring as if she knew him intimately. He doubted she ever seen such an intense and unashamed look of desire in a woman's eyes. And of course, his ever astute father didn't miss it. "Now tell me again you dinna know her, lad," Silverton said wryly. "For certain, she seems to know you." Justin shook his head, bewildered. He felt like a fool, standing and staring, but try as he might, he could not drag his gaze away from her. Her eyes turned gently imploring, as if she was hoping for something from him, or trying to communicate in a silent message. Where had a wee beauty come from, and why was she having such a profound effect on him? Granted, she was lovely, but he'd known many lovely women. His betrothed had been some of the most beautiful women in the Highlands, yet none had ever made him feel quite so virile and hungry and intensely possessive. Such stirrings did not bode well for his plans of impending marital bliss. After an interminable silence, he spread his hands, confused. I vow, I've never seen her before in my life, da. Sylvan crossed his arms over his chest and scowled at Tristan. Then why is she staring you at like that? And if you didn't bed her last night, how do you explain the condition she arrived in? Oh my, the lass sputtered then. You think I I hadn't considered that. She heaved a huge sigh and pinched her lower lip, staring at them. About time she spoke up to clear his name, he thought, waiting. Well, Sylvan encouraged, did he tup you last eve? She hesitated a moment, glancing between the two men, then gave an uncertain wobble of the head, which Justin promptly interpreted as no. See, I told you, da, Justin said, relieved that she had finally looked away from him. Righteous indignation flooded him. I do not have to seduce maidens, not with so many experienced lasses vying for the pleasure of my bed. Women might not want to wed him, but that certainly doesn't prevent them from crawling into his bed at every opportunity. Ofttimes, he suspected the very rumors about him that drove him from the altar were the same that lured the that enticed them to seek his bed. Fickle like that, lasses were, attracted to danger for a night or two, but of no mind to live with it. When the tiny lass glared at him, he flashed her a puzzled look. Why would she be offended with my prowess with the wenches? Forgive my indelicate question, lass, Sylvan said, but who removed your maidenhead? Was it one of our people? Typical that his father couldn't let it go. It hadn't been him, and that was all Tristan needed to hear. Under normal circumstances, he would have scoured the estate for the erstwhile suitor who deflowered and callously abandoned her, and see to it that he was granted whatever recompense she wished, were it one of his own, or his dad had thought. But his dad had thought he had taken her maidenhead, and that offended him. Dismissing her from his thoughts in a large part to prove to himself that he could, he turned away to find Nell, clear this matter up with her, and procure an edible breakfast, but froze in his tracks when she spoke again. He did, she said, sounding both petulant and irritated. Justin pivoted slowly. She looked nearly as shocked by her own words as he. She wilted beneath the stress of his regard, then mumbled, "But I wanted him to." Justin was incensed. How dare she accuse him falsely? What if his betrothed heard tell of it? If Anaya's father heard of this wee woman claiming that he'd callously deflowered her, then renounced her, he might call off the nuptials. Whoever she was not going to wreak havoc on his unborn children. Growling, he crossed the pace between them in three swift strides, scooping her up with one arm and tossed her over his shoulder, a controlling hand splayed on her rump. A controlling hand that didn't fail to appreciate that rump, which made him even angrier still. Ignoring his father's protest, he stalked to the door, jerking it open and tossing the lying wench out, head first into a prickly bush. Feeling simultaneously vindicated and like the sorriest rogue in all of Alba, he slammed the door shut, slid the bolt, backed himself against it, folded his arms over his chest as if he had barred the door against something far more dangerous than a simple lying lass. As if chaos herself had currently wedged in his hedges, clad in irresistible leather and mating heat. And that's the end of that, he told Sylvan firmly. But it didn't come out sounding quite as firm as he'd intended. In truth, his voice rose slightly at the end. Hello, Mitchell. Hope you're having a good night. His assertion bore questioning reflection. He scowled to more properly punctuate it, while Sylvan gaped at him, speechless. Had he ever been seen his father speechless before? He wondered uneasily. Somehow he had the feeling that dumping the lying lass out in the prickly bush hadn't put the end to anything. Indeed, he suspected that whatever was going on, it had only begun. Were he more superstitious man, he may have fancied he heard the creaking wheels of destiny as they turned. Gwen sputtered Oh, sorry. Chapter 14. Gwen sputtered indignantly as she backed out of the bush, plucking prickly leaves from her hair. There she was, less than 12 hours later, on her hands and knees in the confounded doorstep again. Incensed. Incensed. She threw her head back and yelled, "Let me in!" The door remained firmly shut. She sat back on her heels, pounded a fist on the door. The argument that had erupted inside the castle was so loud that she knew that they'd never hear her over such a racket. She took a deep breath and reflected upon what she had just done, thinking that a cigarette would go a long way toward clearing her mind, and a cup of strong coffee might restore her sanity. Okay, she admitted. That was objectively stupid, she said singularly, and wrote in the worst thing that she could have said, guaranteed to piss him off. But she had been through a lot in the past 24 hours, and logic hadn't exactly been the ruling planet in her little universe when Driston turned his back on her. Emotion, that great, big, unexplored planet, had been exerting an irresistible pull on her wits. She didn't have enough practice with emotions to handle them with finesse, and by God, the man had made her feel so many that it was simply bewildering. When she'd first seen him, she stood atop the stairs for several moments, gazing at him with her heart in her eyes, scarcely hearing the conversation going on below. When he was devastating in any century. Even when she'd thought him mentally unhinged, she'd found him dangerously appealing. In his natural element, he was 20 times as irresistible. Now that she knew he was genuine 16th century lord, she wondered how she could have ever believed otherwise. He dripped regal authority as blatantly as he wore his sexuality. He was a man who thoroughly enjoyed being a man, ecstatic that he was alive and well, and that she'd arrived in time to save him. She'd rushed down the stairs. Then, Driston's father, Sylvan, the man she'd mistaken for Einstein, had mentioned something about her being pregnant, fluxaming her. Confronted with the possible pregnancy before even latching her lips to the rim of a cup of Starbucks, she stood stupefied. It's not enough to just to buy condoms, Cassidy. You have to use them. And then Justin had tossed his silky mane over his shoulder and looked right at her. And although his eyes had flared as if he'd found her attractive, there had been no spark of recognition. She expected that. She'd known he wouldn't know her. Still, her heart had not understood how awful it was going to feel when he turned that silvery, sexy gaze on her, as distant and cold as a stranger. Rational or not, it had hurt. And then he'd made that wise ass comment about women vying for his pleasure of his bed. Then, as if he hadn't poked every one of her raw nerves already, he turned his back on her, dismissing her. Now I see Einstein talking about maidenheads. This shit's crazy. Now do you see why women are nuts? I can say that because it's bred into us, genetically speaking. It's in our DNA. It was at that point that she reacted blindly. She blurted out the one thing that she knew would make him turn back around and look at her again. She sacrificed long term goals for instant gratification. She was appalled by what he'd done. It was no wonder her mother was so stridently counseled against being emotional. Emotion apparently made fools of even geniuses. She needed him to listen to her, and he wasn't going to be in any mood to hear her now. By telling him they'd been lovers before, telling him the whole story, she irritated and provoked him. Let me in, she pounded on the door. I need to tell you the whole story. But there are still arguing but they were still arguing so loudly that she might as well have been whispering. Brushing leaves from her gown, she rose to her feet. She scowled at the door since no one would answer, and the argument showed no signs of abating. She tipped her head back, eager to see the castle in daylight, but she was too close to it. She felt like a flea trying to get to a good look at an elephant while perched upon its forehead. Curious, she decided she may as well take a short walk. Tucking her bangs behind her ears, she turned around and froze. Her heart slammed into her throat. Impossible, her mind wailed. But there he was, plain as day, simply heart stoppingly sexy Tristan, sauntering up the steps toward her, clad in leather trousers and a linen shirt, casually unlaced, revealing a mouth-watering amount of hard, bronzed chest, although the brilliant morning sun was behind him, shadowing his features. His smile was dazzling. Yet behind her in the castle, Tristan was yelling. She could hear him. According to her understandings of physics, both of them couldn't exist in the same time, but obviously they did. What would happen if they met? Would one of them just blip out of existence? If Drustin behind the door was the one that didn't know her, she reasoned, then Drustin on the steps, who looked so happy to see her, must be her Drustin. What was she going to do with two Drustins? A lot of things. A kinky part of her proposed something unmentionable, or rather fascinating. Really, if they were both him, it wouldn't be like she was cheating on anyone. Blushing, she oogled him from head to toe. Her Justin didn't scowl at her. He arched a brow in that oh so familiar way on his grin on of his and grinned, opening his arms wide. She didn't hesitate. With a shriek of delight, she launched herself at him. He caught her mid leap, pulling her legs around his waist just like in her century. He laughed when she covered his face with little kisses. She had no idea what she would do with two of them, or how it could be possible. She only knew that she missed him more in the past 12 hours than she had missed anyone ever in her entire life. Kiss me, she said. Och, English. I'll be kissing you most thoroughly, he purred against her lips, clamping her head between his hands. He slanted his mouth hungrily over hers. Gwen melted against him, parting her lips. There was no doubt about it, the man was an expert kisser. His kiss was demanding, aggressive, silky, hot, and hungry, and in any minute now she'd feel the sizzle. Any minute now, she thought, kissing him back with all her heart. He tasted of cinnamon and wine, and he kissed her single mindedly with a single minded intensity and still no sizzle. Hmm, she said against his mouth, meaning, wait a minute, something's not right. But if he heard her, he paid no mind and deepened the kiss. Gwen's head spun. Something was seriously wrong. Something about Tristan was different, and his kiss wasn't affecting her as it usually did. Distantly, she heard the door open behind them and drew to draw back, but he wouldn't let her. Then she heard a roar and was dragged off Tristan by another Tristan, one steely arm about her waist, another one around her neck. Hey now. She glanced rapidly between them, blinking and hoping her double vision would go away. They were glaring at each other. Would they fight? If she saw her own double, she'd probably be tempted to punch at it once or twice, especially today for being so stupid. What's wrong with you? Passion and irritation. Irritation glittered in leather true clad Justin's eyes. What's wrong with me? Kilt clad Justin snapped. What's wrong with me is that this wench here, who was kissing you so ravenously, accused me of taking her virginity. Kilt clad Justin dumped on her feet between them. I'm trying to save you before she tots you to her deceitful web. I liked her deceitful web. It was hot and slippery, and all a lass should be, Justin the leather trews growled. Kilt clad Justin launched into a diatribe with a burr so thick she could scarcely understand a word he was saying, and the Driston of the Truths began yelling back, and then Sylvan poked his nose out of the castle to observe the fracas. She'd lost her mind, she thought. Watching with wide eyes, they stood nose to nose arguing while she plucked nervously at her gown, backing up a few steps and listened, hoping to catch a word or two that she might understand. Observe. There's a logical explanation for this, the scientist insisted. Drustin! Dagus! Sylvan said reprovingly. Stop your arguing this moment. Diagus! A ray of enlightenment pierced her. Oh, whoops. Diagus! A ray of enlightenment pierced her confusion. Her nostrils flared and her eyes narrowed. It was one more thing Justin hadn't bothered to tell her. That he and his brother, were identical twins. I had a feeling that was going to happen, but I'm sorry. Twins trip me out. Like, have you ever actually seen identical twins? Tell me your mind isn't tripping the whole time you're looking at both of them. Bom bom bom. there was these there was these two girl twins that used to work. One of them worked at the gas station, the other one worked at a body shop, right? I would work at the body shop, talk to her. We would have full on conversations. I'd go to the gas station and talk to her about something, and she'd just look at me like I'm nuts. And I never fucking knew they were twins. Never knew. And then she would have a conversation with me. We'd have a full fucking conversation. And then I'd go back the next day and go talk to her at the fucking body shop. And she's looking at me like I'm nuts. Like, what the fuck just happened? Finally, they caught on that, like, I didn't realize that they were twins. I'm sitting here like, why do they look at me like I'm crazy? Or why does she look like at me like I'm nuts every time I talk to her? I was like, damn, you work two jobs? Like, what? Like, one day I finally actually said that to her. I was like, oh, I didn't know you worked both places. And she's like, both places what? And I was like, the body shop in here. And she's like, no, that's my sister. Excuse me, ma'am. What? She's like, yeah, yeah, that's my sister. We're twins. So this whole time, I've been talking, thinking in my mind it's the same fucking person. And they smell like oil and grease. You must have been turned on. I'll be honest, they're kind of hot, and I'm not even like that, but they're pretty hot. Like I'm kind of jealous. Like I kind of really wish I looked like them. So they're like fucking models. I'm not even joking. But yeah, I'm sitting there talking to them like, hey, like, how are you? Whatever. And they're like, I have no idea what the fuck I'm talking about. Anyway, I'll be honest with you. I have like a weird obsession with like men in uniforms and the smell of like car grease. I don't know. It's weird. Not obsession, but like it really turns me on. Every mechanic on the planet just like ding da da ding. Come here, lady. I promise you, you'll be so fucking turned on. Oh no. Anyway, I got 15 minutes left, and I don't want to go to bed. I want to get to the next chapter. I want to find out which one's which, and I'm so confused right now. I'm kind of slightly turned on because there's two of them. I don't know. It's kind of like weird. Not weird. Everybody has their own things, so it's not a big deal. All right. Her nostrils flared. It was more. It seemed there were oodles of things that he had overlooked. He'd nearly given her a heart attack over this one. He certainly hadn't been saving him easy. She kicked the real Driston in the shin. You didn't tell me you and your brother were twins. He continued arguing with Dagus as if he'd barely touched him. No wonder with such a flimsy little slippers. What she wouldn't give for her hiking boots. And now I have two problems, she thought. Dagus was still alive, which meant she had to prevent his death too. She was elated to have the opportunity to save Dagus, but she was beginning to feel a little overwhelmed. Discovering the date was a serious priority, and she had to get her hands on Diagus's itinerary. There was no way he could go anywhere near the Elliots' estate. Now that they were standing side by side, she could discern the differences and not mistake the two of them. Again. They weren't quite identical, probably half identical. Polar body twins, giving them about 70% of the same DNA. Had the sun not been bright behind him as he walked up, she might not have erred in the first place. Diagus was indeed an inch or two shorter, which still made him at least 6'4". His hair, which she hadn't been able to see when he'd been walking toward her, pulled back in a thong as it was much longer, falling to his waist, and so black it was nearly blue. And their eyes were different, she thought, sidling closer between them, ducking wildly, gesturing arms to get a good look. Oh, and how she thought, for silvery as Justin's were, Diagus's were yellow gold. Wow. All in all, the two of the most gloriously handsome men she'd ever seen. Justin stopped cursing and glowered at her. Who are you? He demanded, finally rubbing his shin. I've been trying to tell you, but the moment you hear something you don't like, you do. Do you ask questions to try to clear it up? She demanded, hands on her hips and glaring back at him. No, not even one. You behave like a barbarian. Not that she'd done much better, but wiser to go on the offense and justify her own failings. I thought you were smarter than that. Drustin opened his mouth and closed it again. Huh, she thought smugly. The offensive, the offensive had worked. Diagus's brows rose and laughed. I must say, for being such a wee, I am not a knife, she said defensively. Lass, she certainly has fire. And it's a fire you can keep your hands off, Justin snapped. He looked bewildered by his own words and added hastily, I do not want you to get snared in her trap. 'Tis apparent she's looking for someone to marry her. I am not looking for someone to marry me, Gwen said firmly. I am looking for someone with a mo- modicum of intellect. Ahem, that would be me, dear, Sylvan said mildly, raising an ink spotted hand. Justin scowled at his father. Well, that would be, Sylvan said, crossing his arms over the bony frame and leaning back against the door jamb. You do not see me standing out here while shouting my head off with a few simple words might clear things up nicely. I'd say that qualifies, Gwen said, tucking her arm through Sylvan's. She wasn't going to get anything accomplished trying to talk to Justin now. Let him cool off outside for a while. She swept into the castle, towing Sylvan along, kicking the door shut with her heel. I can't tell you, Gwen told Sylvan for a third time, already regretting having come inside with him. The moment they'd entered the castle, the Inquisition had begun, and until she talked to Justin, she dared not tell Sylvan a thing. She'd already made one mistake this morning. She was not going to make another. She would tell Justin and only Justin. She would tell whomever he could tell whomever he trusted. Well, what can you tell me? Anything? Gwen sighed. She had taken an instant liking to Sylvan McKelter, another of those baffling gut instincts that moment she'd seen him standing in the hall interrogating his son with so much love in his eyes. She'd felt a twinge of envy, wondering what it must feel like to be the focus of such parental concern. Not only did he resemble Einstein, but his white hair, olive toned skin, curious brown eyes, feathered by wrinkles, and a deep grooves bracketing his mouth, but he demonstrated similar acuity of mind. Perched on the hearth in the great hall, she glanced at the door, hoping Justin would saunter in. Angry or not, she needed desperately to talk to him. I told you my name, she hedged. Rubbish. That tells me not where you're English with Irish ancestors, and damn dog that accent. How do you know Justin? She regarded him glumly. How am I supposed to help you, my dear? If you refuse to tell me a thing, if my son took your maidenhead, 'tis wedding he'll be. But I can't force him if you do not tell me who you are and a bit about what happened. Mr. McAlter, Sylvan, he interrupted. Sylvan, she amended. I don't want you to force Tristan to marry me. Then what do you want? He claimed. More than anything right now? I? I'd like to know what the date is. She hated asking it so baldly, but she needed to know. She drew some comfort from the fact that Diagus was still alive and meant that she arrived in time, but she wouldn't feel entirely safe until she knew precisely, to the minute, how long he had. Sylvan went very still. His dark eyes narrowed, head cocked at an angle. She suddenly had the eerie feeling that he was listening with more than his ears, watching with more than his eyes. And she knew she was right when he murmured, Oh, my dear, you're from a far, far place, aren't you now? Nay, it's good to know what turned you on. There's a lot of things that turn me on. It's gotten easy when you're single for so long and you're almost 40. Just saying. What are you doing? Reading my mind? Can you do that? She might believe anything of a man who fathered a son who could manipulate time. Nay, 'Tis but a deep listening in the old way, something neither of my sons are up to, although I've tried to teach 'em. So 'tis the date you're needin', he said slowly. I'll trade you enters. What do you say, Queen Cassidy? I'm not going to get them any other way, am I? He shook his head and a faint smile played at his lips. I'll answer your questions as honestly as I can, but there are bound to be some that I can't answer just yet. Fair enough. As long as I do not lie to me, my dear, we'll get on fine. If you can tell me what transpired last eve, then tell me why you can't. That was reasonably safe because I must talk to that was reasonably safe because I must talk to Driston first. If once I talk with Driston, he chooses to, he can tell you everything. Sylvan held her gaze, weighing her words for truth. "'Tis the 19th day of July," he said finally. About a month, Gwen thought relieved. When Driston had discovered that he was in the future, he said, Christ, I haven't lost a mere moon. I've lost centuries. Translation. Initially, he thought that he had been in the cave for a month or so, which meant he'd been abducting somewhere in mid-August. He'd also said that Diagus had recently died. She had no idea how recent his grief had been and assumed he'd meant several months or even a year ago, but apparently Diagus would die at some point in the next few weeks. She needed to know exactly when Diagus planned to leave for the Elliots. She had to prevent him from going at all. 1518? She hated wasting a question, but had to be sure. Considering that Tristan had gotten the month and day wrong, she supposed it was possible that he messed up on the year, too. Sylvan's eyes evinced utter fascination. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and peered at her. Where are you from? He breathed. She sighed and averted her gaze. Half afraid of the canny man would read her answers in her eyes, she blinked momentarily, distracted by her first real look of Great Hall. But when she'd come downstairs, she scarce seen past Justin. The hall was elegant and lovely as her chamber had been, the floor fashioned of spotlessly scrubbed pale stones, the walls lined with brilliant tapestries. Two hounds snored softly beneath a large masterpiece of a table. Heavy velvet drapes were pulled back from tall paned windows, and the rosy marble double staircase gleamed in the morning light. A panel of stained glass was inset from the massive door, and silver shields and weapons adorned the walls on either side. It's, it's a country you've never heard of, she demurred. Not about to say the good old US of A. That wouldn't start a whole other conversation that would go on indefinitely. Tell me, or you'll get no answers from me. Really, where where you're from can hardly be too revealing, can it now? She blew out a frustrated breath. America, across the ocean. Again he assessed her with steadily stare. 1518, he agreed. And I know of the Americas. We do not call it that, but we Scots discovered it centuries ago. You did not, she sobbed. Christopher Columbus um merely followed the Sinclair's path after he got his hands on the old maps left to the Templars. Oh, you Scots have got to be the most arrogant. What a conundrum you're proving. Do you always talk over people? He snorted with laughter. You do it rather well yourself, he said, smiling, and patted her hand. I think I'm going to like you quite a lot less. So when do you plan to tell Tristan so I may hear the whole story? Scotland didn't change to the Gregorian calendar until 1752. He could have got the date wrong. Okay, listen. To me, this is just a book. Like this is not. I have no idea anything about history, so don't even. You could tell me anything, I would believe you. So I don't know shit about history. I hated history class. Hated it. Hated it. Hated it. Hated it more than math class, which was a lot. All right. The minute he walks in, and thanks for giving me an easy question. That's not fair. That wasn't a uh-huh. No way you're reneging now. That was too a question. Aye, but not really, and you know it. Sylvan grumbled. He averted his nose with a snit, a flicker of admiration in his eyes. You're a clever lass, aren't you now? Next, he said dryly. Is Diagus planning to take a trip any trips soon? What a very odd question. I must say you've got my curiosity in quite a leather. Aye, he is to go to Elliot's soon. Did Trustin take your virginity? She blew out a breath slowly. It's a very complicated situation. I must speak to Tristan as soon as possible. Your son is in danger. I believe that he trusts you completely. However, he must decide what to tell you. I can't say any more that until he and I talk. Please respect that. He arched a brow and nodded. When he took her hand between his and patted it, she felt funny inside. She couldn't recall her own father ever doing such a thing. He held her hand for a few minutes. His eyes narrowed, his expression pensive. She had the distinct, unsettling sensation that he was peering right into her soul. Was that possible? She wondered. All right, my dear, Sylvan said. You win. No more questions until you speak with Tristan. But if I know my son, he'll not cooperate. He must, Sylvan, Gwen said desperately. We don't have all that much time. Is he truly in danger? Gwen closed her eyes and sighed. You all are. Then we will make him listen to you. Gwen opened her eyes and scowled. And how do you plan to make him do that? Lock him in a room with me? Sylvan smiled faintly, deepening lines about his mouth. Elderly thought elderly though he was a handsome man with no small amount of charisma. She wondered why he'd never married again. Surely not for lack of women being interested. Not a bad idea, my dear. Will you do as I say? After a moment's hesitation, she nodded, and he bent his head close to hers and began whispering. Ooh, chapter 15! I was getting good! Oh my gosh, I don't even want to stop reading, but I have to. So, what did I do with my paperclip? No! Dang it. Alright, so what do you think? It's starting to get really good. Now she's got the dad on her side, and like now there's twins, and like that's kind of weird. Hi, Wolfie. Don't laugh at me. But now she's got the hots for Digus, not Dristan. I mean, she loves Dristan, but now like the sizzle is between her and Digus. Looks like we should start talking. Interesting. Interessante. I don't know. I'm excited. I'm excited to get to the next chapters because I really want to know like what the fuck's going on. And plus, like, why haven't Nell and Sylvan like hit it? You know, like how many years? 12 years? And you have a house wench? Like what? Your wife died like forever ago. And I'll be honest with you. Like If I was married for a long time and my spouse died, I'd be so like fucked up for life. I know people that their spouses died and like they're not okay. So yeah, I guess in a way I kind of understand. So I want to know how the priest gets into it. I imagine he condemns her and goes all BDS, hangs her. She's a witch. She's a witch. They gotta burn her at the stake. No, 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 no. They're gonna think that she's trying to stop the wedding because remember, Tristan's trying to get married to this other fucking chick, right? For land and money because it was already promised to her. Then she just shows up, right? Bloody and like saying that they fucked. And like, you know what I'm saying? Like now they're thinking probably like I think something happened with Tristan, not Tristan, Digus and the new wife. I don't know. That's my thoughts. I just when you your comment, Daniel, totally just got like this very like hardcore imagery in my mind, like out of nowhere, like dungeons and chains and like super BDSM, like beat beating the badness out of her, so to speak. But she's got like the tingle, like the sizzle for Digus now, because she got them mixed up. Now I don't even know which one's which. And how I'm all kinds of fucked up. Like I don't know what to think anymore. Because remember when she walked into the room, she had even he admitted that he had the sizzle with her, and but that was Diagus. Diagus was the one eating the pig pie or whatever, but she didn't know that. She thought it was Driston, but it's actually Diagus was in the house arguing with the dad. Then Driston shows up, smiling and shit, like he knows her, making out with her and stuff, but she ain't got no sizzle no more. So it's like, whoa. I mean, unless I got it mixed up. Am I wrong? Was Diagus the one that walked up the steps? Or was it Driston? I don't know. Which is the evil twin? I tell you what, I have dreams sometimes that when I wake up in the dream and I'm still dreaming, and it's like real life, like everything is like I can feel things and like everything. But there's one thing completely different. And one time I had a dream that there was two dogs, and one was good and one was evil, and I had to try to figure out which one was which. So that just trips me out. Like I can't deal with twins. Like if they're standing next to each other, like my mind is like I can't think about anything else. I just stare at them, like completely bewildered. Like maybe Tristan is the evil twin sending her back in time to thwart his good brother's plans. Mm. How many chapters is this? I'm halfway. Like I'm a little bit more halfway through. I'm on page. I'm on page 211, and I don't want to read the last page because I know it's gonna give it away. I'm gonna be mad at myself if I read it, because then I'll know the ending and it'll just ruin the rest of the book. 396. So I'm at like 211 and 396. It's like halfway. Oh my gosh. So yeah, we're on chapter 15 of 28. I hope it goes by a little quicker now. I don't know. It's like getting towards the end of it, so like it's gotten like the soft, easy entryway, and then it's little twists here and there, and now it's gonna be all fucking battle. I bet you the wife and her meet each other, and then the wife is like trying to keep them from each other because that's what I would imagine in real life it would be. I don't know. I think the wife is the fucking witch or the sorceress or whatever the clan, the fucking coven. I don't know. I could be wrong. More roller coaster on the way. Yeah. I don't know. I kind of want to read some more, but I can't because I gotta go to bed. It's already 12 o'clock. So, and I gotta get up super fucking early tomorrow, and I don't want to. You should check Dark series on Netflix. I'll have to look into that. I finally got Netflix this past year, so I haven't looked at any of the series other than Queen's Gambit, and that's only because I thought it was a fucking movie. So, oh, I am so. So, just a reminder: 10 a.m. tomorrow is canceled because my daughter has therapy, and I don't know how long it's gonna take. So, I might come live whenever I get back. I'm not sure yet. Sci-fi and time travel based one. I mean, it's cool. I think I think I've heard of it, but like I haven't actually like seen it. You know what I mean? I love all like the dystopian and like the sci-fi and like the battles, like stuff like that, type of movies. I don't know, but like, and this is something that I kind of argued today. Was like I'm very like in person. I'm very like slow, romantic type person. I like having full conversations and being intellectual with people and learning new things, like learning about them, the things that they like and stuff like that. Like I like that. I'm not the like quick to jump into anything with anybody. And like that I think that pisses people off. So, especially because the fact that I have an OnlyFans and I have a fat life and I have like all this social media, like my Instagram is like half me, half nude or I make sexual jokes and stuff like that. But like it's a lot of times people will even say to me like, "Oh, you want to like get it?" And I'm just like, "No, I'm not a whore. Sorry, I don't go around fucking everybody." Like, good and quick learner as well. I try, I try, but yeah, like I've been single all year and I've only been with somebody for 2 weeks out of that whole year, the whole year. So, and I don't mind being single. Like, I miss like being in a relationship with someone on a personal level, but as far as like the rest of it, like I have to know for sure that that person's capable of handling the amount of bullshit that I have to deal with on a daily basis. Like to be with me is a project, and it's not just me. Like it's not like me as a person. Yeah, I guess I kind of am, but like for the most part, it's exactly like, and that's what I'm trying to explain to people is like I require a higher level of commitment than most people. Sorry. So, and then on top of that, if you want to be in like a relationship with me, I've got fucking 6 kids. 2 of them were adopted. 4 of them are mine, and they still live with me. I live in a fucking pop-up camper. I have nothing to offer anybody. And vetting, lots of vetting. What's vetting? I mean, don't get me wrong. Like once I'm with somebody, I'm like a straight up fucking porn star. But I'm just saying, like, until that point, I'd like to get to know you first. Like, what am I getting myself into at this point? What is vetting? Like back and forth, finding out about people's art. Yes, 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 yes. Lots of vetting. I am like straight up fucking government agent when I'm learning about people. Like, I will straight stalk your social media. I will make sure that you're not lying to me because I've had so much bad shit happen to me and my kids that, like, I do not trust anybody with my children. Period. Like, it's okay to be like kind of cool, casual, socially, but like actually being around them for long periods of time and being at the time when I had my place in my house. That takes like a whole nother like ridiculous level of like just trust. And I was with somebody for 7 years, and I come to find out that he sexually molested my daughter for years in my house, in my bed. Never knew until after we broke up. My daughter finally broke down and told me. This person was nothing like he acted. You would have never known. Yeah. So people wonder why I have a hard time, A, in relationships, B, with around my kids. That's why. And he didn't even see any jail time. She confessed on the stand, and he never saw jail time. And the shit that he did to her, like, was so fucking brutal. She's permanently fucked up from it. Been in and out of mental institutes for suicidal thoughts and attempts. So yeah, and people ask me all the time, like, "Oh, why won't you just let me hit it and quit it?" Kind of thing. No, fuck you. Not even in a nice way. Like, nope. So yeah, yep. My ex-husband abandoned my kids, split up all six of them. Yep. I was left. It was just me. It was just me. And he was violent. That's how we divorced. He put me through a glass door. So, yeah, finding out people's backgrounds, I am more than happy to tell you the truth about anything. I have no problem with it. I've been through so much shit, you would be fucking amazed. Yeah, life is going to be better now. You know why? Because I'm going to make it that way for all of us. I mean, I may not get along with my parents, but even if I won the fucking lottery, even though me and my parents don't get along, I'd fucking buy this property so they could retire. Let's make sure that they're good. We don't have to be around each other a whole lot. I still love you, even if I don't agree with you or don't like you at certain times. I don't have to like you to love you. So, anyway, that's my harsh thoughts this evening. So, on a cool note, though, I found chocolate covered Ritz crackers at the store the other day. I think a lot of people do. If they really like think about it. I'm not accidentally mentioning anything. I'm telling you guys straight up. Because I was asked a lot of questions today from someone who ghosted me a long time ago and started like getting upset because I said no. I think, and again, to my point, like I really think that a lot of people do. I have a hard time remembering anything. My memory is fucking destroyed. But as you can tell in my streams. But yeah, especially in relationships, like I try to dismiss a good portion of the bullshit and nonsense. A, because it's for my own fucking sanity. I got enough stuff to worry about. The stress level that I've went through the past 2 years was so high, it literally almost killed me. So there's some stuff that I'm not okay with. Night, Wolfie. Have a good night. Thank you for coming on stream with me again. I appreciate it. Bye bye. So yeah. Anyway, on that note, I think I will leave it at that. Trying not to leave it on a heavy note, but sometimes life sucks. Sometimes there's things that we can't control. But I know that there's a lot of things that I can control, and that's what I'm trying to do now. You too, hon. Have a good night, Daniel. You're welcome, love. Feel better tomorrow. Until then.